The Zephyrian High Command had dismissed Earth as a backwater curiosity, a planet populated by primitive bipeds who had barely managed to split the atom. Their reconnaissance probes had observed human warfare for centuries: crude projectile weapons, chemical explosives, nuclear fission devices that barely scratch planetary surfaces. Primitive, manageable, exploitable. Commander Vex Thul reviewed the invasion projections one final time aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. The humans possessed no faster-than-light travel, no energy shields, no antimatter weaponry. Their largest military vessels were laughably small metal constructs that floated on water. This would be the easiest conquest in Zephyrian history. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: deploy dimensional gates directly above major population centers, allowing Zephyrian shock troops to pour through from their home dimension. No messy space battles, no lengthy sieges, just instantaneous, overwhelming force delivered exactly where needed. Dr. Rebecca Singh was calibrating the quantum resonance detector at CERN when reality tore itself apart above Geneva. The massive ring-shaped structure that materialized in the sky defied every law of physics she understood. Energy readings spiked beyond anything their instruments could measure as armored figures began pouring through the aperture, their weapons disintegrating everything they touched. The first wave of Zephyrian troops expected terror, surrender, desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, they encountered something they had never seen in their 1,000-year history of conquest: adaptation. Within hours of the initial assault, human military forces worldwide were analyzing captured Zephyrian technology. Not to understand it that would take decades, but to find its weaknesses. The dimensional gates operated on principles of exotic matter manipulation, creating stable wormholes between parallel dimensions. But every technological system had vulnerabilities. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a graduate student studying quantum entanglement at Tokyo University. As Zephyrian forces decimated the city around her laboratory, she made a crucial observation. The dimensional gates weren't just doorways, they were quantum entangled pairs. Every gate that opened created a corresponding resonance frequency that could theoretically be hijacked. If we can't close their gates, she transmitted to the scattered resistance networks, we make our own. The first human-controlled dimensional aperture opened above the ruins of Moscow 3 days after the invasion began. But instead of allowing passage between dimensions, it served a different purpose entirely. Dr. Tanaka had weaponized the quantum entanglement itself, turning the gate into a massive gravitational lens that focused the energy of a dying star directly onto the Zephyrian ground forces below. The aliens' energy shields, designed to deflect conventional weapons, were useless against weaponized spacetime itself. Commander Vex Thul watched in growing horror as his forces were systematically annihilated by an enemy that had reverse-engineered technology in days that had taken his species millennia to develop. But worse than the tactical defeats was the growing realization that the humans weren't just fighting back, they were evolving. Each new dimensional gate the Zephyrians opened was immediately co-opted by human forces. The apertures that were meant to deliver reinforcements became conduits for increasingly devastating counterattacks. The humans had learned to redirect the gates themselves, sending Zephyrian troops not to Earth's surface, but into the heart of stars, into the vacuum of space, into the crushing depths of gas-giant atmospheres. But the humans weren't content with mere defense. Within a week, the first human expeditionary force stepped through a hijacked dimensional gate directly onto the Zephyrian homeworld of Kethmaran. They didn't come as conquerors seeking territory or resources. They came as a plague of pure innovation, their minds crackling with the dangerous creativity that had transformed Earth from a primitive world into a dimensional warfare powerhouse in mere days. The Zephyrian civilians had never seen warfare on their own soil. Their technology had always guaranteed complete military superiority. Now they watched in terror as human soldiers appeared from impossible angles, emerging from dimensional tiers that opened inside buildings, beneath the ground, even within the molecular structure of their defensive barriers. Dr. Singh stood in the ruins of the Zephyrian High Command Center, her hands steady as she calibrated yet another dimensional gate, this one designed not for transport, but for permanent spatial displacement. Around her, the once mighty Zephyrian Empire crumbled as humans systematically dismantled their technology and repurposed it into weapons the aliens couldn't comprehend. "Your mistake," she said to the captured Commander Vexthal, "was assuming that intelligence follows a linear progression. You spent millennia perfecting dimensional technology. We spent 7 days making it obsolete." The final dimensional gate opened not in space, but in time itself, a temporal aperture that allowed human forces to arrive at the moment before the invasion had even begun. The Zephyrian fleet found themselves facing an enemy that had already won a war that hadn't yet been fought. But by then, it was too late to simply call off the invasion. The dimensional gates had created permanent tiers in the fabric of reality, and humanity had learned to keep them open indefinitely. They had become a species that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions and timelines, their consciousness distributed through quantum space itself. The Zephyrians had wanted to open a door to conquest. Instead, they had opened a door to their own obsolescence, and humanity had walked through it with the casual confidence of a species that had always known that any cage could be turned into a key if you were clever enough to figure out the lock. The gates would never close. Humanity had made sure of that.